All right, let's get our Facebook folks in here, and then we can start the show. Get the wheels spinning here. We got them going, rolling. 1 and 2. All right, welcome in. It is Monday morning, the 9th. Happy non-loser / non-victory Monday, Broncos country. I think it's kind of a win. Ravens don't gain any ground, and the Chargers lose in a doink fashion. And we're here to actually celebrate a little bit of the Chiefs' devil magic going on. 10-0 in one-score games. It's unbelievable, but we'll take it at this point.
Wait, I didn't see it. I just looked at the box score and I clicked on Gamecast to see. All right, did they lose the lead? Yep. When did they kick their game winner? Yep. Did they bounce one in for the game winner?
It hit off the post and it went in. Yeah, it was unbelievable.
I've never seen anything like this.
Nobody
Really?
has.
I mean,
yeah.
The Auburn Tigers had a season, the year that they lost FSU in the national title game where they had several things fortunate, and like someone actually put up a sign, the luck stops here. But this is ridiculous. There's no way you can win 3 games in a row like this in the playoffs.
I mean,
there's no way.
We keep saying that, right? It's the Breaking Bad.
They're going to be 16-1 and out in the first round. Well, the second round after their bye. Yeah. Their first game.
Possible. Anything can happen. I'm hoping that the Broncos can take care of business at home. Week 18 still feels weird to say that, but yeah, no, the Chiefs end up winning. I saw a stat. There's been 5 games they've had this year where the last play has been in field goal range, and they've only kicked field goals on 3 of them, meaning that something's gone wrong. The other hand, unfortunately, one of those was the Broncos, the Raiders the week before. And Scott, it was a doink off the left post and then banked in. And I mean, the field goal post is about the length of $1, I think they said, and to kick it perfectly where it hits the inside and then goes in is pretty improbable. And they called it the doink for the division or something like that, because the Chiefs won their 9th division in a row. Typically, pretty angry, annoyed by that, definitely annoyed by that. But it does knock the Chargers down to 8-5. And now the Broncos are tied for 8-5. All 3 of the wildcard teams currently sitting there at 8-5. Due to tiebreakers, the Broncos are last out of those 8-5 teams, but they're right there. So the 7 seed, the 6 seed, the 5 seed, obviously the first thing is to clinch the division. Not the division, but to make the playoffs itself. But Denver has a chance to make any of those wild card spots still with the games they have remaining.
Michael, good morning. Good to see you. He says, good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Bo Broncos. Good morning to you, Michael. And I run Florida Gators on SI is one of my sites that I'm a managing editor for, and I'm in a Slack group with those guys. And the Gators have kind of had some rough times lately, and they're like, and the kids don't remember this. They're in their early 20s. They're like, "What did we do to deserve this?" And I'm like, "You remember that guy Urban Meyer and what a POS he was and selling his soul?" When Kansas City eventually, on a long enough timeline, hits the skids and has like back-to-back 5-12 seasons, point back to this season. What did we do? We were so good for so long. What did we do? This is what you did. The voodoo. It balances out. You just hope it would balance out a little sooner at some point. But I cannot. I'm doing power rankings, and I know their record. I don't care. All they do is win. All he does is catch touchdown passes. They're just not that good. You can't beat them. It's unbelievable.
And with that also as well, Scott, you have the Bills losing maybe the game of the week. I don't know if you had a chance to catch any of that Rams-Buffalo game, but like both quarterbacks were like in the 97th or better percentile in EPA per dropback. It was the most points scored in a game this season. And it wasn't like sometimes you watch those games and it's sloppy football. I won't say Monday night last week with the Broncos-Browns, but there's a little bit of slop factor to that. Didn't really feel like it was slop factor in that Rams versus Bills game. So if you have a chance to go back and watch any of the games this week, Josh Allen versus Matt Stafford, those guys were absolutely dealing. So incredible game. But with the Bills losing, now they are 2 games behind the Chiefs. They do have the head-to-head, but with 4 games left and being 2 games back, there's a chance that the Chiefs aren't playing for anything in that Week 18 game, which is like a little bit frustrating, right? Because you want to beat them. You don't want them to, their fans be like, oh, we weren't playing anybody anyway. We didn't have anything to play for, blah, blah, blah. But also, if that makes it a better chance for the Broncos to get the W and clinch the playoffs or get a better seed, I don't really care. Thank you. Sit your starters. Whatever. Mahomes has been getting pulverized this season. He's getting hit way more than any point this year. The Chargers-Chiefs game last night, both those quarterbacks left the game pretty bruised and battered. So we'll see. That's 2 of the 4 next Broncos opponents. But Denver's sitting in a good spot. They have to take care of business next week against the Colts. They are the better team. I haven't seen what the early line is just yet. I'm sure we'll pull it up and talk about it here. But I believe I saw that the Broncos win or playoff probability, if they beat the Colts, it jumps up to 90%. If they lose, it drops down to 49%. So a massive game. I wouldn't call it a win and in kind of game, but it does kind of feel like a loser leaves town matchup versus the Colts.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, we talked about this, and I didn't check it for sure, but you got a 2-game lead on the Colts right now. If you beat them, it would be a 3-game lead with the tiebreaker with 3 games left. So the Colts would be eliminated.
Yep.
If for the most part, you got to watch the Chargers too. They could still catch the Chargers, or if the Ravens lost every game. But for the most part, the Colts would go from, they'd probably still only be a 50%. They might jump to 40% if they win this game, but they'd be down to almost 0 if they lose this game. So this is a must win for them. And we talk trap games a lot. Is this a trap game? And no, I have a hard time believing this time of year anything's a trap game. But in a sense, Nick, this is the type of game where you can say, yes, this one is more of a trap game. The Raiders, no. I don't care what the Raiders record is. A divisional opponent, it's not a trap game. Monday night game, no, that's not a trap game. You're focused on playing Monday night. Coming off a bye, 8-5 against a team that you're going to be pretty heavily favored against, relatively speaking on NFL landscape. 6-7 as you're looking at the Chargers down the line. That's a little bit that qualifies a little bit more as a trap game. But you've had a lot of time to focus on this, and again, there is a lot riding on this game, Nick. We've kind of penciled it in as a win for a while, but there's a lot riding on this one.
Yeah, so the Broncos right now, it actually opened with the Colts as 2.5-point favorites, which I think, unless if I'm reading this correctly, at Vegas
probably was over the summer open. Maybe. Like when they did that, but there's no way there's just no way the Colts are favored in this game.
Yeah, I'm guessing that must be the opening from the summer. But
yeah, in the summertime, yeah, that makes sense. The Colts were 1 game off a playoff, and the Denver Broncos are going to win 6 games at best.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how that works when it opens. Somebody might be able to answer that for me. But right now it's at 4.5 to Denver, which feels right. So they're sitting there. I don't know. Again, I don't know if that just swung here this week or that's probably from the summer. That makes way more sense. But Denver's favored in this game, and both of these teams are coming off bye weeks. Probably unfortunately for Denver, but that's good also. It's a team that after they beat the Browns, one of the first things Bo Nix said on the podium is they're excited to have the bye week and have the time off. Obviously, that's a lot of football in a row, the latest bye week in franchise history, all the way at week 14. And now they got a quarter season sample here against 4 pretty good teams. And unfortunately, obviously, we're opening it up with the playoff discussion here. Denver, while they are sitting here at 8-5, the games they've won do them no favors as far as making the playoffs when it comes to tiebreakers. The Broncos are 4-1 against the NFC, which is great. They sweep the NFC South. Your one other loss is the 17th game they added. It's your cross-conference rank. So Denver finished, I don't know, what would you say last year, 12th in the AFC? They played the 12th ranked team in the NFC. That ends up being the Seahawks. They lose that one, but Denver is not great so they're 4-1. That would make them 4-4 against the AFC, if my math is correct there, on the season. Maybe 3-4 against the AFC. And you also have the current losing the tiebreakers to the Chargers and the Ravens and the Steelers, all the teams that are ahead of you in the wild card. Now, granted, you're going to get a chance to make it up versus the Chargers here in, Thursday Night Football, not next week, but the week after. So we'll see what happens there. But as it stands right now, Denver, tiebreakers are not favored to Denver, whether it be the slotting of the playoffs or the head-to-head. And I'm not sure what the tiebreaker would be if you beat the Chargers in the next one, but you still end up with the same record. I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
It would. The next one is divisional record, and then conference record, and then common opponents. Then flip a coin.
It's divisional. I know it's different.
No,
for like wild card
it's divisional. Then it'd be divisional. Who finished better in the division within the division games, and then it would be conference, I think, is next after that.
Okay.
But basically what you're saying to me is the Broncos are no longer underdogs to make the playoffs. They're favorites. However, that doesn't mean you can't play underdog fantasy. Underdog is a place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. Join over 5 million fans who are already playing on Underdog. With their pick'em game, you could win money by making entries with your favorite players. Compete against other players just by selecting higher or lower on 2 or more player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog.
With their champs game, you could win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on a player's stats, such as passing yards, interceptions, touchdowns, and much more. Like, for example, Nick Bonito, been on an absolute heater. Will he have a sack? Over half a sack, 1.5 sacks? We'll see. Every dog deserves a second chance, and with Underdog Rescues, you can get your money back and receive a promo if an early injury causes your entry to lose.
So download the Underdog app today and use code MHuddle to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Again, download the Underdog app today and use our code MHuddle to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Every player, every touchdown, just select higher or lower on Underdog.
Must be 18 plus, 19 plus Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. So keeping it forward here, Scott obviously talking about these playoff probabilities here. You mentioned it. The Broncos win this game against the Colts. Broncos are in over the Colts no matter what. You'd own the head-to-head, and there'd be no way for the Colts to make up the ground. After that, for the Broncos to make the playoffs, Scott, all Denver needs to do is win. I believe this is correct. All Denver needs to do is win one more game or have the Dolphins lose one more game. Now, unfortunately, we could have had it where the Dolphins almost lost to the Jets yesterday, went to overtime, and the Dolphins scored a touchdown on their first possession in overtime, but I believe if the Dolphins would have lost that game, all Denver would have had to do is win this next game, and they're in. AFC, we don't know the order of the 7 teams, but we know the 7 teams. Dolphins have a pretty easy schedule. They got to go on the road to some tough games, but
they got 3 out of their 4 on the road.
Yeah, and some cold weather ones, which Dolphins have. They're gonna have to beat the allegations that they cannot play in cold weather.
You shouldn't stereotype. They're stereotypes for a reason. They become cliches for a reason. It's not because they've gone out and kicked butt in the cold.
Yeah, no, there's a trend for that one with Tua as well. But I digress. The Broncos beat the Colts. That has to happen. I mean, if you lose the Colts, you are inviting chaos there, and you actually lose. I think you actually lose the ability to control your own destiny there. If not, you are one loss away against 3 pretty tough opponents down the stretch here for the Broncos. But you beat the Colts, you are sitting there in the driver's seat, and I believe then you only have to win one more of your next 3 with at the Chargers Thursday night, at the Bengals, at home against the Chiefs. So very much control your own destiny there. It sets up pretty well, but the unfortunate thing, Scott, is Denver hasn't really done well against good teams this season. I believe they have 1 win versus a team with a winning record currently in the Buccaneers. So this last stretch, you're going to really get an idea of where this team is at. Good teams beat bad teams, and Denver has definitely beaten bad teams this season. But that next step, can they beat good teams? Haven't seen that so much this season.
And to be fair, this is a growing team, an improving team, and their schedule is kind of front loaded. We weren't sure that was going to be the case, but there was, Seattle's a good team. Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously a good team. And then there was a rough stretch in the middle that you survived and thrived. And now you're absolutely improving. Now the Denver Broncos are a good team. And frankly, you keep doing this when it comes to the standings. And for those of you listening, I'm looking over my shoulder. I'm not doing that anymore, man. I'm looking ahead. I really am. I think it's worth looking at the Chargers and looking at the Ravens as much as it's worth looking over your shoulder at the Dolphins and the Colts. Because yes, right now you don't have the tiebreaker on either of those teams. However, you're already tied. So you're behind them now, but any sway in games, you don't have to worry about, oh, they need to lose and we need to win and to get even. You're already even record-wise. So any fluctuation in record, and you're jumping up. So, we've talked about who would you rather play, Pittsburgh or Buffalo, in Buffalo. Well, why not the Texans? Why not you move up to the number 1 wild card spot, because you're level with those guys. You've got Chargers. You control your destiny with the Chargers, where you can move up above them for sure. That one's done. And then Baltimore has been so helter-skelter. They've lost at Browns. They lost their first 2 games, to the Raiders. They're good. Their losses have been okay. I understand that. They lost most recently to the Eagles, but they're at Giants. They've got the Steelers again, and that one will be at home at Ravens, and that one's going to have a lot on the line, so you're going to get your best there. At Texans, and then Browns at home. And, frankly, they might have their seeding locked up or not. They don't have it locked up because they're fighting for wild card stuff, but it won't really matter as far as, do we get a week off or not? Can we win the division? And the Browns are Jekyll and Hyde in those division games. So, brother, I'm looking forward. Speaking of brothers, Nash Altaf, good to see you, brother. Says, hey, bros, what do you think the defensive plan will be without Moss? I hope the loss versus the Patriots last year helps us this week. Can't lose this week. Again, the focus. Because, Naj, I said it earlier, so obviously I agree with you, was when we talk about trap games, this fits the bill. We always talk about, is this a trap game? I hear that all the time in games where you're favored. Could you lose? A trap game is, we lost because we weren't taking this opponent seriously and we weren't focused because we were looking ahead to the next game. That's what a trap game is. A trap game isn't, can this team beat us when they're underdogs? No. This qualifies because you're looking at bigger fish down the line. But, Nick, there's so much on this game. I think it will really be – Sean Payton will do a very good job of making sure that they're not overlooking the Colts. It's only natural. I mean, it is. Yeah. It's like, they're not overlooking anybody. They can't afford to look at him. I know all that. Human nature is still human nature, though.
Yeah, I would be surprised if this Colts game ends up being a trap game, Scott, just because they had – I think, if anything, I know it was Monday Night Football, but this has been a really dysfunctional Browns team this season. You had the bye week, and you're thinking about that final stretch there. Oh, we obviously – I mean, the fans in here, too. This Browns game is an obvious W, right? Very much not an obvious W. That was – you can't take – it's the NFL. I hate it when people, assume how outcomes are going to come. You never know in the NFL, unless you're talking college football where it's – Georgia playing Mercer in November, right?
Or Alabama in an SEC championship game.
Yeah.
Saban was 11-1 in SEC
crazy.
Championship games.
Who do you lose to? LSU, maybe?
I don't know. No, because they wouldn't have played each other. They may have lost to Florida at one point. I don't know, but that's insanity. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. I don't know if this is such a this will be a trap game just because you are looking forward to the Chargers, but also you're looking forward to this Colts game. You've had a week now to get yourself right. And also for Nash here, if this is known, then you guys can correct me here, but I don't know if Moss is for sure out. I know there's been
let's just talk. Assume though, because I think Joey Grubbs asked on Facebook, is Moss not playing? He's like, no, we're assuming right now that Moss will be back. But if he's not, how do you make sure you don't have a repeat of that disaster class against the Browns?
It would be shocking if you could have a repeat because I don't think Anthony Richardson has the ability to drop back in play in time and rhythm as a down the field passer like we saw from Jameis Winston. Jameis is we saw, was it 60 dropbacks? And he's going to give the defense a chance to take the ball away, but he's also going to hit some very incredible tight window throws. It's kind of like the Sam Darnold thing where if he gets hot, it's like, oh my God, it's beautiful. And then it can go the wrong way really fast. Anthony Richardson, they're not going to try to drop back like that. It's going to be much more quarterback option, limit the numbers, and they're going to try to be down the field and explosive, but not efficient high volume. So it's not like Jameis. I just can't imagine the ability to pick on the same thing over and over again in the pass game like we saw with Jameis Winston. I just don't think there's enough consistency in the drop back pass game from Anthony Richardson. The big thing in this one will be not letting them get over your heads. Because if you make Anthony Richardson, and we saw it versus the Patriots, he did in that last drive, but if you make him have to continuously do 10, 15 plus play drives, they're going to stall out. He's going to take a bad sack. He's going to put the ball in harm's way. He's going to miss one. At least, I mean, you never know, right? But that's been the trend so far. So I don't think it's exactly like the Chargers, the Browns game from an opponent perspective. So really, it's just don't let them get behind you. And that includes, Levi Wallace, if he's playing, you can't play that. If you're playing like a cover zero look, the rule is don't let them get behind you, because if the ball's coming out quickly, probably, then you track downhill. You don't play the midfield pass. You just don't let them get behind you. That Judy pass one, he played that coverage the exact wrong of anything you should do. That was so terrible from him. So different game.
And Naj, what I'd like to see a little bit more like old fashioned cover two. If I have Levi Wallace in there, turn him into a press and release. So I don't have to doubt, because that's where it came in. The doubt is, okay, do I go with him or not? And that hesitation will kill you. And where Anthony Richardson can beat you is and Nick got into the point that I would have made on this, is he is capable of throwing the ball 70 yards to Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, some of their explosive receivers. They are not an efficient offense, which is Shane Steichen is probably driving him a little bit crazy right now, because he's got a little bit of Sean Payton in him as far as play calling and how he wants to run an offense. And Anthony Richardson's a chaos merchant. So don't let him break contain and fire the ball over your heads. But I would like to see a more simple game plan for Levi Wallace. And about as simple as you can do is you've got the first third, press, cover your zone, and release. Or you got straight man in a cover two, and I got help behind you. But basically, Naj, keep it simple, stupid. I need it to be as simple as possible for Levi Wallace to overcome his lack of experience within the scheme with live reps. Like, well, he's a veteran, he knows this. Yeah, but it's still different. The communication on the fly is different. So that's what I would do, Naj. And thank you so much for the support. Good to see you this morning.
Yep. Appreciate you so much, Naj, for coming in. I'll see Jeremy Sean's in here. If we focus on ourselves and not worry about the pack, we'll be in great position to crash the playoffs party. I think Denver's already in great position to crash the playoffs party, but you're right. They just got to take care of business. And it starts with beating the Colts. You beat the Colts and good things can happen for you. Denver, Luke, great to see you. Hope you're doing well. Jason's in the house. Broncos motto this week, handle business. Absolutely. Monica's in the house. Great to see you. Dave Glassman with the support coming in here. Chase Wellner, always awesome to see you. Chase, hope you're doing well. Mr. Roush in the house. Happy Monday to you. Hope you're doing well. Robbie Red comes in and says, is Cody Barton just on a one-year deal? He is just on a one-year deal. I think Sternad's a free agent at the end of the year. Also, with how the Broncos play defense, I mean, we're down to, very thin margins here on the linebacker position. And really hasn't been so much of an issue for the Broncos on defense this year. And that's not true for every defense and every scheme, but I don't know how important the linebacker position is for what the Broncos are doing right now. It's all about the rush and cover. If you got cornerbacks and pass rushers for how Denver's playing defense, you're going to be okay. Now, with how they like to blitz, maybe it'd be a little nicer if you had a little bit more downhill pass rushing, gap pressing ability on the A gap, some of those mug looks. But right now, that's not really a part of the Broncos game plan. And Barton's been fine out there, especially for what they're paying him. Very little. So he's been fine.
Real quick. Yes. And I think linebacker will be a priority in the offseason for this team. Just to put a bow on the talk from Naj's super chat, what if Moss isn't out there? There's several comments about either Damari Mathis or Chris Abrams-Strain coming in for Levi Wallace. Yes, that's on the table too, obviously. My answer would be the same. If I'm putting in a new person in there, I'd want it to be as simple as possible. And frankly, it benefits playing. If you do a press and release cover 2 or cover 3 or however, but a press and release, and I keep my outside corners other than Surtain, the opposite Surtain, in the first third, it's going to help with containing Anthony Richardson also. So I want speed on the edges with Anthony Richardson out there, because how he's going to hurt you is with his legs and then extending a play with his legs and then having that howitzer of an arm.
Yep.
He's not going to hurt you going West Coast style. The running game is an extension of the passing game. The passing game is an extension of the running game. That ain't him. He's a big play, big risk, high reward, high risk kind of player.
Yeah. And the big thing for me in this game, the Colts have been horrific this season on early downs. They are the 20th percentile EPA on early downs, one of the bottom 10 teams in football. Denver's literally the second best team in football in early down defense.
And that's what happens when you can't complete short to medium passes.
And they're also not rushing the ball great right now either. Despite having Anthony Richardson back there, they've been 37th percentile in EPA per rush, 23rd percentile in offensive rush success rate. The Broncos have been much better there. Now, their success rate has not been, as good as some of the EPA stuff for Denver. But I mean, 81st percentile pass defense success rate, 89th rush defense success rate. That's the biggest discrepancy in this game out of all the advanced stat is the early down EPA for when the Broncos defense is on the field versus the Colts offense. And that should lend itself to pinning your ears back, making Anthony Richardson play in obvious drop back pass situations, which if it's 3rd and 2 and you have Anthony Richardson back there, you should feel a little bit tense because of the RPO, the play action. I mean, he's a threat to run. You could hand it off in an RPO look or a quarterback zone keeper, or we could hunt down the field. I mean, I would not be against that if I was Shane Steichen. So winning those early downs and having that trend continue will be huge for Denver in that game. We got Amy in here.
I have a question for you. Hello, Amy. I have a question for you, Nick. Thank you for coming in, Amy. Appreciate you saying hi and supporting the show. There's some talk in here about Broncos building, and y'all get into that again tomorrow night for sure on building the Broncos. It's almost Christmas, which means it's getting close to draft time talk. Ashton Jeanty, okay, where do you think he goes? Where do you think he goes in this draft? Considering that Jahmyr Gibbs went 12-ish, Bijan Robinson went 8, so it's not completely out of the question that a difference maker running back could be a high first-round pick.
Especially because it's a bad quarterback class, a bad wide receiver class, a bad offensive tackle class, comparatively.
Other than that,
it's good on defensive line.
I know, I'm teasing.
You got good tight ends.
It's time to make up for the fact that last year's defensive class didn't have anybody go until about 15.
And last year's quarterbacks and pass catchers and tackles were phenomenal comparatively. So it fluctuates, and you want to take advantage of the good classes when they come. Not the year to force an offensive tackle. Hashtag retain Garrett Bowles. But as it stands right now, I mean, teams that could be looking early, I imagine he goes in the top.
Forget teams, because I'm talking. I have a follow-up question. Where do you think he should go? Where do you think? He should go
in the top 15.
Okay, so class, 13 or so?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's play this game. Let's just say 15, okay? Because the Atlanta Falcons right now have the 15th pick. Because I think Jeremy has a question in here, or there's a lot of Jeanty talk in here. What would you be willing to give up to get Jeanty? If Jeanty's on the board at 15, what would you offer the Atlanta Falcons?
A 4th-round pick. Not a lot, and I know that's not going to get it done.
Yeah, and that won't get you up. I'd want at least a future second.
It's a historic draft class for the running back position. I don't think it's good resource allocation to spend on a running back when, I mean, honestly, there's a chance that the next guy off the board at running back is better than Jeanty. I mean, Genty's been incredible this season, but also he's had a very large number of carries. And the next tier of, if you want to talk about that expenditure, you gave your 1st-round pick up and future second, I'd rather use both those picks on a running back than two running backs than take Jeanty. Honest to God, in this class, right now as it stands, Jeanty is my number 1. He stands alone. But after that, Caleb Johnson from Iowa, Amarian Hampton from North Carolina, and somebody who I'm high. I watch him, Scott, and I'm like, this guy's unbelievable. I don't know why there's not more draft buzz. I mean, they kind of split carries with him.
I say that about Jarquez Hunter at Auburn.
I don't see the explosiveness with him. But the back I'm going to mention here is Nicholas Singleton from Penn State, who might be the best pass protection back in the entire class. He looks like a wide receiver, and he is so freaking explosive, and he actually has running back 1 size. He's like 6'1", 6 foot 230. I mean, he has the ability to carry it, and he hasn't had a lot of carries because they're splitting him with Katron Allen back there as well. So there's still a lot of tread on the tire. So I'd be happy as a what with any of those next year guys versus trading up for Ashton Jeanty in what looks to be historic draft class at the running back position. It's not even just those guys either, Scott. I mean, you got Sampson at Tennessee, you got Rocket Sanders at South Carolina, you got Scatabo. I don't know if you saw the Arizona State game against Iowa State, but Scatabo was unbelievable. There's just more. You got both Ohio State guys. You got Mullins out of Michigan. I know I'm forgetting people. It's unbelievable. And I see Bonnie says he likes Katron Allen more than Singleton. I will disagree heavily with you there. I think Katron's very much a plotter.
Well, he didn't say better than. He just said he likes him also, which is fair. He says, I like the Penn State's other running back. That's fair. Yeah. He didn't say more.
Yeah, I think he's just fine. But you got Ollie Gordon, of course, as well. He's pretty incredible. I mean, this is an unbelievable running back draft class.
So to sum up, no.
Yeah.
I don't want to trade up for a running back, even if it's Ashton Genty. Let me put that in a tweet for you for Nick.
If say, let's say he falls to 21 and you're picking 24 and it only costs you a 4 to move up, sure. But I'm not looking to give up a top 100 resource to get a running back in a historic running back draft class.
And to go from 15, because the Broncos, let's see what Tankathon says. If the Broncos are, let's just say if they lose in the first round, right now they're picking somewhere between 19 and 24.
Yeah. Yep.
So 19 to 15, I might not need a future second. I might need a third. But still, it's expensive to move up in the first round.
Yeah.
But if you're 24 to get up 10 spots, no. It's going to cost you at least a second to do that. And to do that in this draft for the running back is what Nick is saying is no. Do not.
Yeah.
Do not do that.
More backs as well. Giddens at Kansas State, Neal at Kansas, Taj Brooks at Texas Tech, Brashard Smith at SMU, also really good. Le'Veon Moss at Texas A&M is pretty good. Maffa at Clemson, Marks at USC, Monangai at Rutgers. I mean, it is unbelievable. I mean, the way it sets up, Scott, Denver should take 2 running backs in this upcoming draft.
I said yesterday, it was asked, what do you think? I said, I think there will be 2 new faces next year. It might have been Michael, might have been Phil, or someone come in and says last night, do you think would you take a draft, a free agent, or both? I said both. I said I expect to see 2 new faces next year. And I don't think there's going to be an $8 million free agent next year, but we also said that one of the differences in this team and next year is the salary cap and the dead cap. Because if you weren't carrying $80 million in dead cap, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, or Josh Jacobs, probably Josh Jacobs, one of those guys would have been a Denver Bronco.
Yeah. And I don't think next year's running back class is as good. I mean, you have Najee Harris is one who kind of stands out, who's an underrated pass catcher. But I mean, it is such an incredible running back draft class that I just feel like even if you don't get your number 1 guy, your number 2 is going to be phenomenal as well. So I don't know. I think I would be looking to do that. Honestly, where it sets up, Scott, and we'll run the mock draft simulator here, and I know it's not Sean Payton's MO, but where the Broncos have needs and where the strength of this class is, Denver would be in a better situation to move back 10 to 15 spots and get more top 100 picks, get a little bit more flexibility, and then take the best tight end, running back, linebacker, defensive lineman available there in the early second round. Now, will they do that?
The key to Broncos for breakfast is this guy, Quentin Caldwell. Thank you so much for the support. All of this changes. The key to this offseason is Garrett Bowles. That's the first domino that has to fall. What are you doing at left tackle? That's the first question that has to be answered before we can move on to anything else. And it's nice that is the biggest question rather than quarterback. And I feel good about wide. I feel good about everything on the team, that there's not an emergency unless Garrett Bowles walks. Now I've got this is a thing that could sink my season if I have a gaping hole at left tackle. It could torpedo my season.
And just to talk, thank you so much, Quentin, for the support. And just to talk statistically, this is not an indictment long-term. This is just the reality of where we're at right now, Scott. Broncos are the number 1 pass-protecting offensive line in football in pressure given up. And Bo Nix, before this week, it might be different now, was the worst quarterback in football in EPA per drop back under pressure. Now, he has the lowest amount of pressure, but when he has been pressured, he's been the worst quarterback in the NFL qualifying-wise. That's true for the whole season. It's true since week 8, when I really think things have been better here. And again, that doesn't mean Bo Nix is horrible. I'm not saying that. He's just, we need to prove that he can be better under pressure.
Try and pressure also rookies. That's been the MO, except for Zach Wilson. You let him throw it.
But to be the worst, that's kind of a red flag. And I think it's so important to retain Garrett Bowles. When you have him, one of the Bush is better than or one in the pocket's better than two in the bush. There, I think I got it right there. So I mean, you have the franchise tag that you can use. We'll see what happens with Bowles, but I just don't think you can let him go. Again, Nix has been bad under pressure this season. That doesn't mean he's going to be bad there long term, but just you got to protect him. So I think you have to bring back Garrett Bowles. He's kind of got you by the you know what. But you also kind of have him also by the you know what because you have the tag.
You have the tag, which isn't out of the question. But like, oh, the tag, that sounds crazy. The top 5, it's not that expensive. He's already on $20 million, and the tag would be about 27.
Yep.
That's not outrageous as far as now you take that entire hit in 1 year, which if you sign him to a 3-year deal, you can knock that number down to about 9.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not outrageous to say that Garrett Bowles could be a tag candidate. Let's go ahead and then do if you want to mock, let's mock.
Yeah, let's do it. We have the Broncos here. Let me know if the settings are looking okay there. If you can see everything, it's always kind of, touch and go with the sizing there. But I'll start the draft. I think the Broncos are picking 24 in this one. I'm doing 3 rounds here. No trades because we don't have time for that. So we're running the mock here. We got Ashton Genty going number 2 overall there. Scott, Travis Hunter up there, Teteroa McMillan, Will Johnson.
New York Giants.
Yep.
Passed over quarterbacks to take Ashton Genty at 12.
Yeah, crazy. Won't happen.
You need to move up team needs on the slider.
Yeah. I moved it up, actually, but this is still very preliminary and early, and it's a simulator. Milrow, Mason Graham, there goes Cam Ward, Nick Scourton, Abdul Carter. I love Abdul Carter. Simmons, Banks, Campbell, there's your tackle run there. Jalen Walker, another tackle. McMillan's. You got Malachi Starks. If he fell to Denver, there's a conversation. I like Locke. I like Brandon Jones as well, but Starks is a dude.
I know it's a small sample size, but I like the Texas safeties better than the Georgia safeties in the last game.
Yeah, I really like Starks.
Starks undercut one and got beat, but I'm not judging a player based on one play. He misread one and it went over his head in that game. But again, that's one play.
Yep. You got Benjamin Morrison then coming off the board. Shamar Stewart, who just declared this morning. He's one of my favorites in the entire class. Defensive line edge from Texas A&M. Emeka Egbuka, Cameron Williams, and then Tyler Warren going 1 pick before the Broncos. That's kind of
there you go, JR. I like the tight end from Penn State. So
there he is. Yep. There goes Tyler Warren. So now we're on the clock with the Broncos. You got Ariante Ursary from Minnesota, the top of the board. Colston Loveland from
Garrett
Michigan.
Bowles has re-signed and has signed a new contract with the Denver Broncos, and that's how we're going to play this game. He's under contract because you will know going into this draft what has happened, whether he is there or he's gone. We're going to do this draft as if Garrett Bowles does a Denver Bronco in April.
And I will tell you, Scott, the difference here for me is if he's only been tagged, I am considering Ursary here for sure, because then you have leverage, and Ursary can play left tackle or right tackle.
He signed a 3-year deal with 2 years of guaranteed money.
In that case, you're probably not looking at tackle at this point. Ursary is somebody who actually has the tools. I think he's still a little bit sloppy with his technique, which is not good for a 3-year starter, but he's been a left and right tackle, and he's a good athlete with size. And if we learned anything from Sean Payton, he loves to keep pouring resources in the trenches. So Ursary would be very much on the table if Bowles walked or if Bowles was tagged for me. But that's not the case.
Can he play guard? Most tackles can play guard.
I think he
play guard. You can get him, and you've got a guy that can fill in at 4 positions, and Ben Powers is getting up there in age too, if I'm not mistaken, and his contract should be coming around the horn as well.
Yeah, he's definitely a possibility here, but I do not think that he is the one. I mean, my highest rated guys here, Scott, will be the defensive tackles. It's just I'm high on these guys.
You need a replacement for DJ Jones if you don't bring him back.
Yep, he's way up there. Kenneth Grant's a freak. He is 6'3", 350. I think he was number 1 or he was in the top 3 in what's his name? Bruce Feldman's freak list. He is pretty unbelievable. He's the second best defensive tackle, but I mean, his athleticism is pretty unmatched. You also have pass rusher James Pierce here. You have Walter Nolan, who PFF is lower on. I think Walter Nolan is a pretty special player up top. I really like Jihad Campbell, linebacker from Alabama as well. We talked about Denver's going to need linebackers. So for me, the guys that I'm up against here, we're not going to do any trades. I like Isaiah Bonnet, wide receiver. I don't know if I'm going to use the pick here. For me, it's Ursary, Colston Loveland, or Kenneth Grant. So any of those guys would be happy with me. I can't see what the chat really doesn't have. Colorado wants Walter Nolan. Walter Nolan's a little bit more 3 technique, which is fine. He's replacing John Franklin Myers long-term in that role, where Kenneth Grant is much more of your 0 to 3. And he is going to play for DJ Jones. He's going to allow you to do, you're going to be a lot more multiple with Kenneth Grant on the field as well. So I wouldn't be upset with any of those guys. So Scott, I'm going to leave it to you on this one. I know you said I'm taking over, but I kind of laid out.
I'm not taking a player. I don't know these guys well enough, but based on the needs, I would like the defensive lineman in this spot as opposed to a tight end necessarily, and start looking at tight end and running back in the second round, unless there's a running back you love. But I think from first round value to fit the needs of the team, if DJ Jones walks, I need to keep the trenches good, because that defensive line, what was the biggest improvement made during the offseason? What did we say all along?
The trenches.
We said it was the defensive line made the biggest. Yeah. Now the bar was set really low last year, but you've gone from a bottom third offense to a top 3 defense. To a top 3 defense, and a lot of it has to do with what's up front in the trenches. If I lose DJ Jones, I need a replacement, and at least, maybe if he's not starting, at least he's still playing more snaps than the average backup. I need a DL here.
Yeah, and I don't really love the wide receiver class in general here. Just in this upcoming year.
And yes, I know the 3 biggest needs are running back, tight end, and another playmaker on wide receiver, but the board just, I don't know that it falls that way right now.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people saying best available tight end, Loveland, tight end. I like Loveland a lot. He's a very good player. He's still pretty young as well, but also I love Mason Taylor. I like Gunnar Helms. Eli Stovers is really good. Harold Fannin Jr., Terrence Ferguson down here. I really like Oscar Delp. I disagree. I like Trevor Sikkema. He's doing a good job. But some of my favorites in this class, he has rated pretty low right now, and that can change very quickly once people start talking to other people in the industry. But you know what? For the sake of this one, Scott, I feel like I've been hearing buzz that they are pretty interested in tight end or running back early, and Loveland is not just a tight end, but he's also a big slot. He plays as many reps as a big slot as he does tight end in line. So I think he's not just replacing Troutman and Atkins and who's the other big tight end from Pitt? Kroll, but he's also replacing little Jordan Humphrey here. So I'm going to end up going with, in this one, because there's going to be plenty of time in the future, I'm going to go with Colson Loveland on this one, even though I'm showing it here on the screen. There are a lot of good tight ends still available. Maybe we double dip if we did a longer draft. But for now, we'll go Loveland.
The thing is you'll have free agency too. So maybe I get a defensive tackle in free agency. Maybe I re-sign DJ Jones.
Yep.
If you want to get a difference maker on offense as a skill player, you got to draft them. So get your tight end here.
If I was full disclosure, my pick would probably be Kenneth Grant here. If I had, my druthers, but I'm going to go with Colson Loveland on this one. And, but I will tell you in the future, there's going to be plenty of conversation about the defensive line as well.
Day two, I'm probably looking running back, tight end.
We already went tight end though.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I'm looking running back, wide receiver, and then / best available.
Yep. So running backs that I like are way down the board here on this one. Caleb Johnson, first overall pick in the 3rd round. You had, who was the other? Omari and Hampton ended up going first round there to the Eagles. I would be shocked about that. So we're on the clock here with the Broncos again. Really just looking, really best player available. There's Mason Taylor, Jason Taylor's son, I believe. He's very good. Like Xavier Watts a lot.
Freak.
Yeah. Good player. Okay, so I'm going to go defensive line now on this one, Scott. Somebody who was one of the best players on the field in the SEC championship game, Alfred Collins. I believe he's 6'4". He's got over 35-inch arm length. And if you watch Texas, in my opinion, the best player on the field in a lot of games was Alfred Collins. He's also, I believe, the number 1 rated graded player, defensive player in the SEC this season as well. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he ends up going in the 1st round. Dane Brugler's mock, he had him going the very last pick of the 1st round to the Chiefs, 32 overall. So I'm going to go Alfred Collins here, defensive tackle from Texas. Really talented player and has the ability to play 0 or 1 technique and give you something that you don't have on your team right now, Scott, which is length on the interior. You got some plugs, but you're not very long up front. And he's got the ability to 2-gap or 1-gap. So now we're on the clock again.
Enrique, and he's still a project as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And at this point in the third round, I'm sorting by running back.
Yep. We are going to sort by running back, and we're going to get the guy that I talked up very high earlier. He's low.
Wait, Jark has that high? Did I see him that high finally?
103.
103 puts him in the third. Okay.
Early fourth round pick.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking day 3. I think he's great value day 3. He's one of those guys we talk about vision and balance.
Mm-hmm.
Why are running backs harder to scout? Because there's things that they have that you can't measure, and balance is one of them. He's one of those guys that's always upright. Like if he gets hit, he's upright and the guy falls off. There's guys that just slide off him while he's always upright. He's just so hard. The center of gravity, his legs are so strong. He's excellent in the passing game. He's just a good football player that I'd be looking at in day 3 if he's still there.
Yep. So I'm going to go with the guy that I talked up really high here that for some reason is way low on this this mock draft simulator, and that means we could cheat, get him in the 6th or 7th round if we were doing that, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to call my shot here. I think Nicholas Singleton, if he does come out, is going to be a top 100 pick, and he might be the best athlete at the position in the entire draft. He's definitely the best pass protector in the class, in my opinion, him or Travion Henderson, but Henderson is going to be medical red flagged, guys. His knee, it might be cooked long term, so he might fall a lot. They're really talented. Can't run between the tackles. I love Nicholas Singleton. I wouldn't be shocked if he was the second running back taken in this class. So we're going to get an F for that pick because he was rated 245. I'm calling my shot on that one. So yeah, they said we should have drafted Torrey Horton. They're going to give us an F on that one. We'll see PFF. I'd bet money right now that he's going to go in the top 120.
I kept our last mock drafts to see where we drafted guys and where they ended up getting drafted. We'll show that maybe next week.
Yeah. So we are it's time here now. But yeah, Nicholas Singleton, get a bad grade there. We'll see. I
can't trust Nicholas.
Although it's our month, right? We just had St. Nicholas Day. We're doing good things. But I would be ecstatic with this draft. I don't love the value of tight end round 1 historically, but Loveland fits something that this team desperately needs. They obviously kept Greg Dulcich for a role, and Loveland fits that really well while also being, I think he's a little bit more explosive. He's a better hands than Dulcich, obviously, and a better blocker. So Loveland came into the season consensus number 1 tight end. He's not as much of a yak size monster that Warren is, but he is more explosive, more fluid. I think he's just a better natural receiver than Tyler Warren is. Warren, you want to scheme him touches. I don't think you have to scheme touches for Loveland. He's just going to get them naturally because he's a good part of the route tree. So Loveland be good. We got Alfred Collins, who I adore, from Texas. I wish he pulled his shirt down a little bit. He's always got his gut hanging out there for Texas. So if that bothers you, maybe don't put on the Texas tape. And then Nicholas Singleton, who is, he's just a freak athlete. And I think he's the best passing back in this class as well. Brian Dunn comes in and says, "Good morning, Nick and Scott. I've heard it said that it takes a couple years for tight end to realize potential. Can Loveland come in and contribute immediately? Would a free agent tight end be better and then draft a defensive line?" It's definitely possible. I don't think it's a very good tight end class in free agency this year. It's not a good free agency class in general. You got Austin Hooper out there, I guess. That raises the floor a lot. But it does typically take time for tight ends to come in and make an impact in the league. The thing about Loveland is that I think his route running in his hands will translate immediately. Now, it might take some time for him to get there as far as his blocking and continue to fill out his frame because he is a little bit light. But with the role in this offense, how kind of Peyton's has used Lil Jordan Humphrey as this like hybrid 12-11 personnel, Loveland could immediately take that and have a role in this team. So yes, it could take time for him to fully develop, but I think his passing game prowess should translate quickly. Similar, more sort of like Sam Laporta and how they utilize him as a big slot / inline guy. So I think it would translate actually pretty early for Loveland.
And that, to me, Brian, and thank you so much for the support. That's where it comes in is, can you trust them in line against 300-pound defensive ends? Because they can be weapons. They can be factors in the passing game pretty early. But can I line them up against grown men on the other side of the ball, which is tougher? So you look at the last few drafts this year, and to me, it just comes into talent. And frankly, you've seen a skew in more athletes going to offense because it's no fun to play defense anymore. The joke I used when I was director of scouting in the between 2005 and 2015 for high school was you don't find tight ends in the South because if you're big and you're fast, they put you on defense. That's changed a little bit because the next 10 years, nobody wants to play defense anymore. So this year, the 2024, the leading receiver in passing yards is a tight end. That's Brock Bowers. I go to a previous season among rookies. 2023, the leading receiver. Oh, see, it does it cumulative, so it's a little bit tougher. Where I'm looking on Pro Football Reference, but Sam Laporta made a big impact as a receiver after the 2023 draft in total yards. And then Trey McBride, he's almost at 2,000 yards, which makes him fifth overall in a very good wide receiver class from the class of 2022. And then the year before that was Kyle Pitts, who had his best season as a rookie and became only the second tight end in NFL history to break 1,000 yards. So I think it comes down to more, do you trust them as blockers? And if you don't trust them as blockers, can you get them on the field? These days, yes, you can. Yes, you can. I can get out there. It's no big deal to go out there and play 4 wide receivers where one of them is your big slot tight end anymore. That used to get made fun of in the run and shoot days in the 90s. So things have changed in the passing game. And yes, you can absolutely use your big tight end as a weapon in the passing game early in his career. Michael Ronquillo is going to close us out. He says, great show today, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Bo Broncos. Go, Michael. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your support as always.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. The one thing I will say about Loveland Scott, I really like him as a receiver. With how much teams are playing light boxes and 2 deep safeties, there is room to operate, and many of the best tight ends that have translated quickly to the league over the last 3 or 4 years have all had really good yak numbers in college. So they are playmakers after the ball's in their hand. Loveland hasn't been that guy so much. Now, granted, is that because teams are loading the box against Michigan because they don't really have perimeter wide receivers, right? Like teams are not playing cover 2 match quarters, light boxes against Michigan over the last 3 years. Because passing game has just not been very good. Even when they had McCarthy, I mean, what has Roman Wilson done in the league? Cornelius Johnson, right? These wide receivers at Michigan. So Loveland's very good. I wish he was a little bit more of a playmaker after he had the ball in his hands like Tyler Warren, but a talented player and somebody you got to look for. And also Harold Fannin Jr. is an interesting one too. He's much more like little Jordan Humphrey. He runs awkwardly. I think he's got a weird gait, but at Bowling Green, he's one to keep an eye on as well. If he comes out, there is some talk that he might hit the transfer portal and transfer to a big time program as opposed to coming out in this draft class. But we'll keep eyes on Harold Fannin Jr. as well.
Real quick, Nick, the other part of this is the bar has been set so low that it won't be hard to make an impact as a tight end in this Broncos offense. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rookie tight ends. 5. That's a lot that have more yards than your leading receiver as a tight end in this Broncos offense. So the opportunity is there if you can be trusted. And anybody you'd take that high would be an automatic upgrade. Yep. And you'd see them if they can block. If they can block, they get more time on the field. Frankly,
yep. It's there's going to be options at tight end in this class for the Broncos. And we talked to Gunnar Helm at Texas, Mason Taylor at LSU, Eli Stowers was like a 5-star, 4-star quarterback recruit at Texas A&M that is now at Vanderbilt. He's really good. Elijah Arroyo from Miami, interesting. Terrence Ferguson at Oregon, we talked about. He had some clutch catches. He's got good size. I really like Oscar Delp out of Georgia. They also have Eurosek, who was at Stanford and recruited by David Shaw and now is at Georgia as well. Luke Lachey's had injuries, but you get him day 3. I mean, this is running back and tight end. I know that those are like the biggest needs for the Broncos. It does not have to be first round. You are going to have so many chances in the draft to add those positions that people screaming for it round 1. You have more than round 1 where you can add that to the offense.
And what do you have? 3 6-round picks?
3 6-round picks, no 5th and no 7th.
And I don't mind doubling up.
You should.
Yeah.
You should.
If it comes down to it, I use one of those 6-round picks on another one that I grabbed I grab a second tight end or a second running back in the 6th round with one of my 6-rounders.
That's my plan right now. Take advantage of the depth of the class. Take one in the top 4 rounds, take another one of the top 4 rounds, and then use your 6th round on another one of those as well. So that's where I'm at. Appreciate everyone hanging out today for the non-victory Monday, but a victory all the same, hanging out here. Michael Ronquillo, Naj, of course, Quentin Caldwell, Brian Dunn with the Fuchsia $49.99. Thank you so much. Michael Ronquillo again. You guys are great. Hope you guys had a good weekend. Make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott's at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Kendell MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, we're over at facebook.com/Mile Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. Also subscribe, like, and share over on YouTube. Shout out again to Underdog Fantasy. Make sure you guys use our code MHuddle. If you guys head over, get a little skin on the game. You know, if you're stuck with your in-laws, there's so much Christmas now over that. We got playoff games coming up here too, Scott, for the college football playoffs. I know we got to go. How'd you feel about Alabama being left out?
I didn't know that they had. I hadn't even checked, honestly.
Oh, they didn't make it because Clemson won on a 55-yard field goal in the last second against SMU. So SMU got it, and Alabama.
How many games did they lose? 3? I don't care.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if you're on Twitter, but there's so much.
I've said for years. I've been against college football playoffs most of my life until they've turned it into the NFL with 13, 14 game seasons. That when you have playoffs and you expand the criteria of who gets in, then all you're doing is starting arguments for people who don't belong anyway.
That's what I'm saying.
So I don't care. And frankly, you know, I posted, yes, Scott, you're a wet blanket. And it's good football. I enjoyed the entertainment factor of it. But the playoffs killed the championship games. From a neutral standpoint, the best 2 games were the Big Ten and the SEC championship standpoint. I didn't give a damn. I mean, I did because I'm a fan of the game.
Yeah.
But seeding doesn't blow wind up my skirt. It doesn't. You'll never, ever, ever, ever convince me that seeding is as important as, hey, the winners in the championship game versus the loser season is over.
Well, of course not.
That's
not an elimination game.
Never as exciting for me. So
yeah,
the playoffs, I don't care. You lost 3 games. You have taken the argument. You no longer get the argument. And Alabama fans, frankly, yes, there will be a lot of people who are upset. I promise you, Alabama fans in general, with the history of their program, are much, much, much more upset that they lost 3 games. It's the first time since Nick Saban's first year that they've lost more than 2 games.
Yeah.
So they get it. There's going to be some vocal people out there that are pissed. This isn't fair. Why isn't this? But most Alabama fans are pissed off that they lost 3 games.
Yeah. There's just a lot of talk coming from SEC that, oh, well, now we'll never schedule anything but FCS opponents in your non-con.
Yeah, why not? Again, if all I have to do is finish in the top 16, why bother? I mean,
they already didn't really schedule anybody, right? Their losses all came in the SEC, and you still didn't get it. So I guess I understand the risk, but like you are playing 8 conference games where the Big Ten and I don't know who else.
Do this, if they want to do this the right way, they need to turn this into the Champions League like soccer does and only play league games. Let's do away completely with, because college football and international football are very similar in a lot of ways. Let's get rid of the cross-division games, the cross-conference games during the regular season, and make it so you have to finish in the top. If there's four teams, and if there's 4 conferences, and I want a 16-team playoff, you got to finish top 4.
Yeah.
If you don't finish top 4, because if you have cross-conference games, yes, I've been having this argument for 20-something years. If you have cross-conference games, they don't affect your conference record. So they don't end up meaning anything. But if I play 12 games within my conference and I have to finish top 4 and everybody's playing the same games, now it's fair. Yeah. The only thing that changes is it's home and away. Where this works in soccer is everybody plays everybody twice, and you play a home and away, and whoever finishes top 4. But you can't necessarily do that. But again, the March Madness, the bubble teams, those are teams that are bordering on 500 anyway. I don't care about them. Yeah. Sorry, you didn't make it into the 65th team. You shouldn't be playing for a championship anyway. You finished 6th in your own conference. How can you be a national champion if you're 6th in your own freaking conference? That's can't be.
Yep.
So I don't care. I don't.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a little bit ridiculous. A lot of these other conferences already have 9 games versus 8 in the SEC. It's like, well, now we're only going to play G5. Okay, whatever. I don't care. But interesting. We'll see what happens here. It's going to be a lot of fun watching those the first round, Scott. You should check out the bracket if you haven't already, and you're going to get a chance to watch a lot of premier players in some actual big matchups. SEC teams actually having to go on the road in the cold. I think Tennessee's heading up to Columbus. That'll be a heck of a matchup. Should be a lot of fun. Appreciate everybody. We're going to get on out of here. Happy Monday. I'll see you all again tomorrow night. Scott and I'll see you again Wednesday morning. Have a great rest of your day. Continue to choose kindness and compassion. Go Broncos.